So everyone seems to be talking about the AI revolution, don't they? This like huge moment when a really smart personal digital assistant just lands and changes everything.
Right.
But here's a really interesting twist we found in an article we're looking at today. It suggests the revolution you see being hyped up, the one you might be waiting for. That's not actually the whole story of what's going on with AI right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this specific article, it's titled, Your AI Companion is Already Here. And it really digs into this idea that while the big tech companies, you know, Apple, Google, Microsoft, are pushing out these like shiny new AI features,
Which sometimes feel a bit meh.
sometimes feel a bit underwhelming, exactly. But the article argues there's something much deeper, maybe more significant, already happening sort of behind the curtain.
Okay, let's get into that then. Our goal here for this deep dive is to really unpack what this article is claiming is the real situation with AI on our devices, beneath all the announcements and the marketing gloss.
Yeah.
It paints this really surprising picture, this contrast between the AI features you see versus this hidden infrastructure that, well, according to the article, is already busy collecting data, laying the groundwork.
That's the core argument. The source suggests that if you feel like you've got a bit of a reprieve, like we have time before AI companions are really woven into our personal lives, it says that feeling's actually an illusion.
An illusion. Why?
Because, it argues, the foundations, the essential building blocks for this stuff, they're already being put in place right now.
Okay. So before we dive into the sort of hidden layer, let's just set the scene a bit. What does the article actually say an AI companion is meant to be? What's that big future promise look like, according to them?
Well, the article defines it pretty clearly as a persistent digital assistant.
Persistent.
Yeah. The vision is something that's always there, observing what you see, what you hear, remembering your past interactions. Yeah. And then using all that history, your whole life history, captured digitally, to offer really personalized suggestions or, responses. It's supposed to feel like a deeply personal relationship with your tech.
Right. Okay. That's the picture we sort of see in sci-fi or the big tech demos. But the article quickly points out that this full vision, this seamless thing, it doesn't actually exist. Not yet, anyway.
Exactly. Not in the way it's often presented.
Which I guess leads us straight to this disconnect. The article talks about the gap between the hype and what we're actually seeing now. It seems pretty critical of the current public-facing AI stuff.
Oh, definitely. It points to examples like reports that an Apple Siri update ad was apparently faked.
Right.
Or that Microsoft's Copilot still doesn't really have those key memory features people expected. And Google's Gemini, it's powerful for sure, but the article says it's mostly doing those kind of generic LLM tasks, large language model tasks, rather than offering that super deep personal context that was promised.
So the article is basically saying these public features are kind of like previews, or maybe even, I think you used the word vaporware.
It did use that word, yeah.
Okay, so that raises a pretty big question then. If the AI we see isn't the main event or isn't even fully ready, what does this article claim big tech is actually doing with AI on our phones and computers right now?
And that's where the core argument, the real meat of the article comes in.
Yeah.
It suggests that while you're maybe waiting for that polished AI companion interface to show up, there are already these things it calls AI agents running in the background on your devices.
AI agents running silently. Why? What are they supposedly doing?
According to the source, their main job is gathering data. The article calls it building the data collection groundwork. It's basically about creating these incredibly detailed personal models of users.
Okay.
Which will eventually be needed to actually power those future really personalized AI companions.
Right. Okay. This is where it starts to sound, well, pretty intense. The article apparently goes into specific types of these invisible agents it claims are operating. Can you walk us through those descriptions?
Sure. It breaks them down. First, it mentions see what you see agents, kind of compares them to features like Windows Recall.
Okay.
These agents, it says, take periodic screenshots. So they're creating this sort of continuous visual log of everything that shows up on your screen.
Everything.
Everything. And using computer vision to analyze it all. And the article really emphasizes that they do this quietly, often without needing you to explicitly say yes or even realizing it's happening.
Wow. Okay, taking screenshots of everything I see on my screen.
Yeah.
That feels incredibly pervasive.
That's certainly the picture the article paints. Then it talks about scan what you have agents.
Scan what I have, like files.
Exactly. Stored media. It points to examples apparently already in major operating systems, things like Apple's Media Analysis D or Google's Safety Core.
Right, I think I've heard of those.
Yeah, they're described as scanning and analyzing things like your photos and videos.
Mm-hmm.
Now, publicly, they're often framed as being for, safety or maybe content moderation.
Okay.
But the article claims their real underlying purpose includes training AI to give personalized responses later on. And crucially, it states these things run whether you've actually turned on any specific AI features or not.
So, wait, the article suggests that even if I'm not using, say, an AI photo editing tool, my photo library might still be getting analyzed by these background things.
That's exactly the claim the article makes about how these background processes function.
Uh.
Then next up, it brings up keyloggers, keystroke logging.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, the source asserts these agents capture basically everything you type.
Everything, like emails, messages.
Emails, messages, social media posts, you name it. The idea is this data lets the large language models learn your specific language patterns, your tone, your habits.
That's very detailed.
And here's a particularly stark claim from the source. It says users cannot block these specific keyloggers.
Cannot block them at all. That implies a level of system access that sounds, pretty concerning from a privacy angle.
It does raise flags, according to the article's perspective. And finally, it talks about the potential for web traffic monitoring.
Okay, what does that entail?
It raises the possibility that these systems could potentially hook into even encrypted web traffic, maybe using pre-installed things called root certificates.
How would that even work?
Well, it draws a parallel to techniques sometimes used in, like, antivirus software. The theoretical capability, the article suggests, is to get insight into pretty much everything you access online.
Okay, let me try and wrap my head around this. We've got screen analysis, media scanning, capturing keystrokes, potentially monitoring web traffic. So according to this article, the big takeaway here is that even if you don't feel like you have an AI companion yet,
Right.
these agents are allegedly already running on your devices, quietly building this incredibly detailed profile of your habits, your preferences, maybe even your thoughts as you type them out.
That is the absolute central argument the article is making about the current state of AI implementation by these big tech players. It's arguing the focus isn't the front-end assistant you see, it's the back-end data collection machine.
And that leads us straight into the major concerns the article raises about this invisible layer of AI activity. What does it say about privacy, data sovereignty?
The article doesn't mince words here. It basically argues that these AI agents are tearing down the traditional wall between your private thoughts and data on your device and a tech company's servers.
Mm.
It raises pretty big concerns about who might get access to this data down the line, mentioning things like government requests under laws like the Patriot Act, potentially compelling companies to hand over user data.
Okay, so potential external access too.
Yeah, and the source also points to, historical examples where big tech companies have misused data as kind of cautionary tales. It suggests this new level of access is an even bigger risk given past behavior.
So it's not just that the data is being collected, but also the what-if scenarios about who gets it later. What about user control, consent? Does the article address that?
This is a really critical point the article hammers home. It asserts that these data gathering agents work independently from the AI front end.
Independently.
Meaning independently of the settings you might flip in a user interface. The article claims you can't really turn off this data collection because these background modules just keep running, whether you've said yes to any specific AI feature or not.
Really?
It even mentions that trying to manually kill some of these background services, like that Media Analysis D thing, often doesn't work because they're just designed to restart themselves automatically.
That's quite a claim, that the user basically has very little real control over this background data harvesting, even if they think they're opting out of AI features.
That's the core assertion, yeah.
Okay, so given all these pretty serious concerns laid out in the article, does it actually offer any practical advice? What can people do if they want to try and protect themselves based on these findings?
It does offer some advice, yes. Based on its perspective and findings, the article's main recommendation, if privacy is really your top concern, is to essentially move away from the mainstream operating systems and hardware.
Move away entirely. Like what alternatives does it suggest?
Well, for computers, it recommends using Linux. And it specifically says not in a virtual machine for better isolation.
Okay.
For mobile devices, it points towards migrating to Android open source project variants, AOSP. It lists examples like Graphene OS, Plex OS, things from the E Foundation, even Ubuntu Touch.
So more niche, privacy-focused operating systems. Does it say which specific devices or systems to avoid?
Oh yeah, it's pretty direct about that. The article explicitly advises avoiding modern Apple devices, Windows computers, and basically any Android device running version 9 or later,
Wow, that's quite a wide net.
if privacy is your absolute #1 priority. It also specifically mentions and promotes a few products from a particular company called Brax.
Brax.
Yeah, as privacy-focused alternatives. It lists like the Brax 3 privacy phone, Brax Mail, Bytes VPN, and Brax virtual phone numbers.
Okay, so the defense strategy proposed in this article is pretty drastic. Essentially, get out of the major tech ecosystems where it claims this invisible data collection network is already deeply rooted.
That's the essence of the recommendation for privacy defense presented in the source material. Yes.
Right. So let's try and pull this all together for our conclusion here. The AI companion we often imagine, this futuristic helper, it might feel a way off. But this article is making a pretty strong case that the underlying infrastructure needed to build an incredibly detailed, data-driven model of you is, according to the source, already here, already running, silently, in the background of the devices we use constantly.
Exactly. The source's final message is quite powerful. It argues the real privacy threat from AI didn't, arrive with a big announcement and a friendly chatbot face.
Right.
Instead, it claims it sort of crept in quietly, incrementally, through these background data processes.
Yeah.
It's positioned as a wake-up call, really, and maybe a call to action for anyone worried about their digital privacy.
It definitely paints a picture of how AI is being implemented right now that feels, well, very different from the usual user-friendly story we hear. According to this one source, the future of AI, at least in this current phase within big tech, might be less about a helpful robot you choose to interact with,
Yeah.
and maybe more about pervasive, constant observation.
It really encourages you, the listener, to just pause for a second and think about how much of your digital life, everything you see on screen, everything you type, everything you store, might already be under some form of scrutiny by the very devices you rely on every day, even if that AI assistant isn't actually, talking back to you yet.
That is certainly a lot to mull over as we all try to navigate this increasingly digital world. This has been a really, really thought-provoking exploration of one particular perspective on where AI might actually be headed, according to this article.